For decades, Somalia was the poster child of a failed state, a nation torn apart by conflict, famine, and extremism. But today, the story is shifting. Somalia is rebuilding its institutions, re engaging with the world, and beginning to position itself as a partner in regional and global affairs. In this video, we'll explore Somalia's journey, its path from independence to the present, the progress being made, and the challenges that still remain. The country gained its independence in 1960, merging British Somaliland and Italian Somaliland into a single state. During the first 7 years after independence, Somalia was dubbed the Switzerland of Africa due to its free market and democracy. The first president, Aden Ade, vacated his post after losing the 1967 elections to his former prime minister. This was the first by an African leader. From 1967 to 1991, Somalia transitioned into a hyper-militaristic state where the army was central. Resources otherwise needed in healthcare and education were funneled into the military to ensure the government stayed in power. The country took advantage of the Cold War between the US and its Western allies, pitted against the Soviet Union, to attain investment and military support. On the one hand, this saw the country engage in a costly and deadly war with neighboring Ethiopia over the Ogaden War in 1977, and on the flip side, the country was instrumental to numerous independence movements across Africa, with prime example being the support for the ANC in South Africa to rid the country of apartheid. The military regime collapsed in 1991, unleashing decades of civil war and the use of militia groups. For much of the 1990s and 2000s, foreign fishing vessels, particularly from Asia, took advantage of the lack of government in the country to plunder the coastline, the longest in Africa. With increased competition, local fishermen organized to deter the activity, with some eventually turning to ransoms as a source of income. During this time, Somalia symbolized state collapse, piracy, violence, and humanitarian crises. By 2012, a permanent federal government was established, marking the beginning of Somalia's long road to recovery. Over the last 20 years, the country has made remarkable improvements in key areas, in particular security sector. The country continues to restructure and strengthen the armed forces, particularly after the 30+ years of UN arms embargo was lifted in 2023. With Turkey's support, Somali forces now operate an array of modern NATO-grade weapons such as Akinci high-altitude drone, conflict-proven TB2 drones, as well as the T-129 attack helicopters. This has allowed for close air support for ground troops fighting in rural areas and conducting targeted operations against Al-Shabaab leaders. Turkey operates its largest overseas military base, the Turksom, where they have trained and graduated thousands of Somali troops and officers, with others flying to Isparta in Turkey for further specialized training. The improvements in security sector capabilities led to Al-Shabaab terrorist group losing all major cities in the country to improved security in and out of the capital. Somalia's peace index climbed to 151st place out of 163 nations, moving it out of the bottom 10 least secure countries for the first time since the Global Peace Index began in 2007. On the economic front, the country's GDP growth rate increased by 4.4% on average since 2021 versus 0.95% for Syria, which is a country that's also recovering from civil conflict. The returning Somali diaspora have also contributed to the construction boom across the capital Mogadishu, while Turkish firms discovered 20 billion barrels of commercially viable crude oil in the country's shores. In recent years, the country has taken steps to re-engage with the outside community. On the international stage, the country experienced major milestones. Firstly, it won a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council for 2025 to 2026 period. This followed on from historic admission of the country into the East African Community in 2024, giving it access to the 7-member customs union and commons market. Somalia's diplomatic maturity was demonstrated when it rallied partners to counter the Somaliland-Ethiopia port deal, which it described as a threat to its sovereignty. There has also been resurgence in the national confidence of the country. In 2025, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud used a Somali-registered aircraft for international travel, the first time in over 35 years. In addition to this, the Somali government purchased 2 A320 planes to revive the long-dormant Somali Airlines by end of 2025. Despite the progress, the country faces challenges that, if not tackled, have the potential to plunge it back into civil war. In particular, the federal government's relationship with the federal member states is volatile. Disputes with Puntland and Jubaland in particular continue to test the federal government's model. These disputes range from grievances over federal member state resource sharing, power dynamics, as well as friction caused by the federal government's push to assert its authority throughout the country. In Q2 2025, for instance, the federal government routed the Jubaland state forces from the Gedo region, sending them across the border into Kenya. Despite losing territory, the terror group Al-Shabaab still remains capable of deadly attacks throughout the country. The government's push in recent years to deny the group safe havens have yielded results. However, the government will need to invest in the youth through education programs and employment to deny the group readily available manpower that they can exploit. The government needs to focus equally on spreading the government services to liberated areas to ensure our people who have become accustomed to lawlessness and lack of authority understand the benefits. Another key challenge is the Somaliland question. Somaliland continues to push for independence. The region bases its claims on the fact that it was colonized by Britain, whereas the rest of Somalia was under Italian colonialism. The region also has grievances over the brutal dictatorship of the Siad Barre regime. The region functions as a de facto country, but has not attained recognition from any country. The Somali federal government continues to stake claim to the region, and, with its capabilities increasingly more lethal, it may opt to bring the region back under control with force if negotiations fail, taking a leaf out of the Azerbaijan's government's forceful reintegration of the rebellious Nagorno-Karabakh region. If this was to materialize, it will prove to be destabilizing for the Horn of Africa region. Lastly, the country is balancing geopolitical power plays in the Horn of Africa region. Egypt, disgruntled by Ethiopia's Grand Renaissance Dam, formed the defense pact with Somalia and Eritrea, as well as contributing troops to the new African Union mission in Somalia. Egypt may hope to have a foothold in Ethiopia's southern flank by amassing troops under the pretense of peacekeeping. For Somalia, it seeks to leverage the friction to pressure Ethiopia to abandon their port deal with the Somaliland region. This balancing act has worked for now, but risks positioning the country at the crossroads of potential future conflict. Somalia's revival is remarkable yet fragile. From the return of its national airline to new oil discoveries and growing international clout, the country is re-emerging as more than just a survivor. It is becoming a player. Yet challenges remain, from political divisions to the fight against terrorism. Somalia's future will depend on whether it can balance this progress with unresolved struggles and position itself as a true world player. Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th US president, once stated, while lamenting the Cold War arms race, "Every gun that is made, every warship that's launched, every rocket that's fired signifies, in its true sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This has been a GEO-DYNAMICS report. Thank you very much for joining us, and please do make sure you do subscribe to stay tuned to our next episode.